Okay, so there you go. It's a mantis. It's a ceramic flute. A friend of mine gave it to me. Wayne, his name, Wayne Hammond. And so it's been worked with in ceremony today as we begin a new 360-day twin cycle, welcoming in the new sun, and also a big trecena of 13 360-day cycles on the 8th level of consciousness. Thank you for having me, Leanne.
Yeah, welcome, Sean, and welcome to the Source Portal, everyone. We just felt to record this meeting that we're actually having on the 21st of August and the beginning of the next trecena, because this is so we can better understand how the waves are unfolding and oscillating in order to be able to structure the meetings of Source Portal in synchrony with the waves. Because we have our Guardians of Gaia gatherings on new moons and full moons on our lunar cycles. And I send out general newsletters on our solar cycles and cross quarter points, our equinoxes. And this Source Portal, from what I understand, is an opportunity for our community to come together to sync ourselves with the source of creation through the galactic cycles according to the Mayan calendar. So it's an actual gift to have Sean here, who was introduced to me by a Kiwi brother shortly after a journey he did with Johann Kalaman in Mexico. And our first meeting was in the Hyde Park in London many years later.
Yes.
Actually, in October 2011 was that meeting.
Oh.
And we've met since again in South Africa. But it's a pleasure to have Sean here with a wealth of knowledge that he has unpacked over the years that he's been journeying with the Mayan calendar. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you, Leanne. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. So what would you like to know and talk about?
So tell us, I'm just going to turn off the pump on my pool because I think it's making excess noise in the background. So we'll just let that be quiet. So if you can explain to us, we are entering the 14th day of the 8th wave of the Mayan calendar today.
Correct.
And in October 2011, the 9th wave opens, which is our unity consciousness.
Yeah. Well, the 9th wave arrived to fruition, but it actually activated on the 9th of March 2011. So that's when creation stepped up to from being on the 8th level and below to the 9th level. And so it went through a process of growing to maturity, like all waves have. And all waves completed and converged to completion on the 28th of October 2011. So they were actually all running in parallel and then converged. And at that moment, it was 28th of October 2011. And then the 29th of October was the beginning of a new time on Earth where all these waves were working in, I would say, in a way, in maturity to themselves because they had come to completion. And so the 9th wave really when that was activated, transcended the duality of all the waves, because it was of such a high frequency. It aligned to a frequency that started to resonate at a very high vibration. And this is really what's been happening since then, and growing in momentum since then. So like, for instance, today we are in, each ninth wave cycle is 36 days. So it's 18 days of peaking energy, and then it goes up a mountain and comes down, and then goes down into a valley, and that's like a trough of energy. And then it comes back up, and then it goes to a peak. So it's 18, sort of 18, and then it goes 18, and it goes 18. And so in that 36-day cycle, there are 9 periods. And the way I see it, and there's many ways to look at this ninth wave frequency. And it's also, by the way, felt. Like, I felt a shift into some density today, even though we've gone into the 8th level's 14th day, and the new trecena, which is opening of new light. The ninth wave is the 137th night. Today begins for 18 days. So it goes into a valley. And so I felt this energy, yes, of a new light rising with the 8th level of consciousness, which has its own, by the way, intention and resonance of growth behind it, that began in 1999. And we can talk about that if you want to. But the ninth wave really, it's really invoking unity consciousness. This is what I think, it's almost like part of a grand design that creation has seeded itself by. It's like a seed that had this memory in the very beginning, when it all began, when the universe started 16.4 billion years ago, 365 days, years, cycles ago, but 360 tun cycles, it was 16 billion 360 tun cycles ago. So you see also what's interesting, this 360-day cycle is known as the prophetic cycle of time. It's the prophetic calendar, the tun calendar, because and one can understand it because it works with the revolution of 360 degrees of the planets. So it's not working with what the physical is doing. It's actually working with what the spiritual is doing and creating the physical. Yet the physical is only recently started to become mature to itself, because it reached this precipice where the pyramid of creation reached this, where all 9 waves converged in October 2011. So yeah, this is just an aspect to my take on it. And also what's happened really is, since 2011, we've now grown with understanding. We didn't understand certain things, and this is really evolution. It's all an evolution. So to understanding, and that's where we are. This is what Earth is going through, and the biggest, I suppose, understanding is to see how really, when we were growing to this level, we were taken off course because we were learning to a degree what it meant to be here in this physical. But since we got to 2011, when all the creations and waves are unto themselves, we are actually at a time where the lessons will become harder, to be honest with you, because if we don't get them, that is. So yeah, that's just a little overview.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I remember writing that in a sentence today. Evolution is happening, and if we're not evolving, we're actually devolving.
Yes,
so
by the way,
ideally, yeah, if we focus on our evolution, then the chances are it's going to unfold with a lot more grace than if we're holding on to stationary and staticness in an ever-changing universal form. Yes. So it's quite an exciting time to be alive on the earth. And for those that are unfamiliar with the Mayan calendar, would it be correct to say that most who are unconscious in the momentum tunnel of consensual reality, which people refer to as the mainstream matrix, are most likely operating in the 5th and 6th waves of the Mayan calendar? Those on their awakening journey could be in stages of the 7th and 8th, and the ideal would be to operate in the 9th, and all waves are happening simultaneously.
Yeah, there is an aspect to that, but it's really the 6th wave. The 5th wave was a floating consciousness of no duality. And I've actually been, in my conversation with Dr. Kellerman, we've been talking about what this was all about. And because each wave is really a process of evolution, and it holds an intention to creation. And so what the 5th wave, we are learning more about what that intention held, and this floating conscious, the time of the shaman, and traveling the universe. It was also, in my understanding, one can say that it was the time, and it's like the evolution of the heart. So the heart has intelligence. And so there is a process of evolution in terms of the heart, which is arriving at maturity as we speak right now. Whereas the 6th level was the evolution of the mind, and the mind works with duality. So what happens is when the 6th level started 5,000 years ago, by the way, the 5th level started 100,000 years ago, because it was 20 times more expanded. So 5,000 times 20 is 100,000. And this is just rough. It's a give or take 100 years or 1,000 years maybe for the bigger level. So on the 5th level, what I found fascinating is, sorry, the 6th level, what I found fascinating is to understand that it is the evolution of the global mind. And it was at that time, in the work of Dr. Kellerman, in his books, he talks about a shift in 3115 BC. And that shift was not just in one place, it was the whole globe. This is how these waves work. It's a unified global shift of, it's like that 100th monkey syndrome, where one monkey can do something on an island and the same monkey will do something on the other island exactly the same, but they're not connected. It's this unified field. So the global mind is the evolution of, sorry, the 6th level is the global mind's evolution to arrive at being mature to itself in October 2011. And that really mature to itself consciousness that it comes with, when it really is truly mature to itself, it will surrender to the heart. It won't control. It will just trust that the energies of creation will be in control. You just surrender. And so that's the 5th level. So what happened was in 5,000 years ago, when the mind's evolution began, it started to transcend the heart. Now with the completion, the heart is starting to transcend the mind. So the 7th level is another whole story, and that was about the evolution of well, it was when, at the time when the 7th level started, which was in 1755, what happened then? So you can work out what happened in time then, in consciousness. And one of the things that happened then was the Industrial Revolution, they say, began. So that was part of what that brought. But what it was ultimately about, it was about industry. And in the 7th day of each of these cycles, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, in the 7th day, which was the last division of 13, the 7th day, it actually manifested what it initiated in the beginning. And so what the 7th day manifested, what it initiated, was www.com in 1992. So it really is incredible how these waves synchronize to the evolution of consciousness, generally speaking. So this is all, if you go into the work of Dr. Kellerman, and I've been working on this work and journey of my own spiritual healing process to find myself. Before I even came up with Mayan Canon, I was already working for a few years on the spiritual path with the medicine wheel, and also the San Bushmen people here in South Africa, learning a little bit about them. And really my art is my biggest teacher, with everything that I was inspired there to bring in. So anyhow, so yeah, that's and then you got the 8th level that started in 1999. It was 20 times more condensed than the 7th. So in other words, the 8th level is 20 times more expanded than the 7th. So it's like condensed and expanded from the perspective you look at it. So each level, as it evolves and it goes up and it steps up to the next, it's 20 times more condensed than the level below. So that's the evolution of consciousness and our ascension, so to speak. Because when everything is condensed, each level is condensed to really just create us as vapor, literally, but in physical form, as an analogy. And so that's why we're finding it difficult, because vapor doesn't hold on to the physical. It just evaporates the physical. If you look at it as an analogy, in other words, we are literally transcending the physical, transcending duality, and living just in spirit, but in the physical density. But in order to master it, we have to transcend the grip of the physical. And this is really what's happening in this world. There's so much that's coming at us, that's gripping onto us, this matrix, So yeah, if you have any questions or anything else, what do you think?
Yeah, the process of materializing spirit and spiritualizing matter is the transformation we're going through. And I found it interesting that the 8th wave began in 1999, because in my personal journey, which has been in many ways off the beaten track and outside of the mainstream matrix, my personal journey has been a journey of evolution. And in 1999, it's when I said enough to the world of travel and tourism. And I paused and said yes to my conservation work in Africa. And so began the next chapter of my life unfolding, both in Zambia and in Ethiopia, working in wildlife and habitat conservation. But there was actually a distinct sound from within saying, this needs to stop. No more of this. Something has to change. What is it? And something new was birthed for the next cycle. Wow. That was very helpful to go through the stages of the 5th, understanding that, then the 6th, where many are still caught up in, and the 7th and 8th, which they're trying to navigate their way through on a board of snakes and ladders, where not all snakes are bad and not all ladders are good, to try and make their way through to master discernment in this dimension and others, and arrive into unity consciousness, into the unified field of the heart, into oneness, where it's not just a concept, it's a living in action. And that's great, because that is the process many have gone through to arrive at the door of the source portal that we're about to open. It's for people who have done their deep personal work, who have arrived into the unified field and are ready to go on an experiential journey through the cycles, I understand, of following the 9th wave of where they're at, so that we can meet probably every 36 days as we begin a next cycle of peak and trough, of day and night, of light and dark, and to be able to work our way through it consciously to optimize the opportunity of the different waves.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is about experiential. The 9th wave is so experiential, but what happens is the 9th wave is so fast compared to the other waves. So the other feel, yes. So the 9th wave is like, as I was saying, experiential. And the longer you notice and follow these cycles, and you notice how you're in a peak or in a valley and what's going on, you can actually journal it as well. And so I have found sometimes when you go into the valley, it's not as bad as other times. And that I put down to looking at the calendar and where we are and why that is happening, because there's certain reasons. And also everyone's got a different consciousness. You know, some people might be finding it tough and others not. And it's all just where you are in your own personal journey too. So, yeah, I've that there is this unified sort of field, you know, that is determining things, and our, I think, job and role is to, as best we can, navigate ourselves. And this is a map in a way. And so you got the 260-day calendar, which is also, I think, is a starting point. It's a really good starting point. If you can learn that, I would say any person who's interested in this work and gravitates to this work and the calendars, it starts with the 260-day cycle. And I don't want to say too much, actually, because I feel that it will complicate people. You know, then it's, you know, the whole thing about the soul, you know, it needs to find out for itself. You know, you don't want to give it too much information. And so I do feel that it's important to go into it and find out things. And if you have questions, also ask. You know, that's it. And really it's about whether you want to do it. You know, are you passionate? And I'm passionate personally. I know I'm excited. You know, I'm excited, and there's so much to be excited about. And when you get into this and you really start to understand it, you actually activate this light of excitement in you, you know, and life, you know, you celebrate life and you feel the joy. And yeah, so, I mean, there is one other thing I'll say is that through this process from the beginning of time, the ninth, the first level, second level, third level, fourth level, that was the beginning stage that was the beginning that set the stage for us now. So when the fourth level started, it was 2 million years ago. So what happened 2 million years ago? That was the sort of time when humanity started to evolve into different species of hominids, you know, upright, you know, and the evolution of the mind, in a way, to become self-aware started then, you know, but it was very sort of not evolved, obviously, to where we are now, to being self-aware. And when it really kicked into be self-aware was what they call these pre-waves to each level. So the pre-wave to each level is like setting the stage for that level to grow. The pre-wave to the sixth level, when the global mind was activated, was 10,000 years ago. What happened then? There was actually said to be quite a lot of change on Earth then. You know, I think around about that time, there was the floods and all sorts of things like that. And so there was like a cleansing. Possibly there wasn't that many humans on Earth because of this big cleansing. That it was like Earth's way of transmuting and transcending and cleansing away what it didn't need so it can just have what it needs. And that was when, if you look in history, just look at what was going on there. And my take on things, you know, that site, Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
Yes, if you look at that and the history there, and you correlate with that with the Mayan calendar and what was going on, and what they were doing in the art, because it's all about art, because art shows the evidence of time, and really humanity, an understanding of what it needed to do, and it was all about ceremony. People were waking up that they have to honor things, and you could see that whole evidence there. And I believe that when, by the time 5,000 years ago came, humanity really understood how to live in harmony with creation then, and part of that was the calendar. So that was what the Maya peoples and the Aztec and the Olmec, the races that came before, were seeded with this information. And it was, in my view, well, we've heard the stories, of the myths of these four beings of light who came down to give the information to the indigenous inhabitants there and the timekeepers, and then they kept count in that way of that coding. And it's it actually is, if you're a scientist, it's good to go into these numbers and codes because it actually correlates to a biological rhythm, these codes, if you look at it. So yeah, I mean, so one of the things I want to also say is that when the seventh wave came, so each level has a polarity, okay, like it favors a certain half of the brain. So when the sixth level came, and it was the global mind and the rise of civilization, it actually favored the masculine, and it favored the rational side. So it was all about rationality, rational. And so that would be correct in saying that. Am I, Lee? Is it the left half, the rational side?
You just broke off there. When we're talking about our left brain is the rational side of the brain. Yeah.
That's correct. Yes, yes, yes. So that then when the eighth level kicked in, it started to favor the right brain and the feminine. That was why in 1999 there was this shift to awaken the spiritual path, and everybody felt it. And there was actually a shift to favor and give more support to the feminine. So women, really started to rise and do a lot of collaborative work, if you think about it, So yeah, there's all these things at the seventh level. So these polarities are what they call like blindfolds. And so you may have heard of blindfolds. So blindfolds are veils on our mind to evolve us in a certain way. But what we're doing, these blindfolds, they were actually binding us to certain things, but if we're aware of it, we would not cope, we would crash burn. So when the seventh level came, it was a full blindfold on our mind. And that was the beginning of that process when the Industrial Revolution started. If you think about it, it actually makes sense because we cut ourselves off from nature and we started industry, destroying nature, didn't we? So that's what happened with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We were so disconnected from the earth. We just started to really destroy her. And so this is really, again, everything comes to fruition in 2011. And now we start to wake up to what we've been doing and look at what the earth's wake up to. The collective is waking up to what it's been doing to earth. And now it's time to course correct. So we've course correcting from having been so off course for so long. And it's because we were evolving. So it's actually no one's fault. It's all part of the divine design plan. And yet, now that we see it, we need to say, okay, how can we now tune into what the design asks of us?
And clean up the mess that we made when we were blindfolded in the most optimal way. Yeah, thank you for that. So it's interesting feeling in. I'm wondering if it's best to synchronize our meetings in the source portal with the dates, 36-day cycles of the 8th wave, or with the 36-day cycles of the 9th wave. Which would be more optimal for why we're gathering?
Okay, so there is no 36 days of the 8th wave. There's only 36 days of the 9th wave. The 9th wave is 20 times more expanded, or for instance, the 8th wave is 20 times more expanded. So the 9th wave is 20 times more condensed. So basically, the 8th wave cycle is 720 days. So it's 360 days, 360 days. The 9th wave is 18 days and 18 days.
18 days.
Yes. So the frequency, the sine wave movement, and this is the plume serpent. That's why the creator god of the Maya was the plume serpent, Quetzalcoatl. It's the frequency. So each level has a bigger differentiation in its frequency. So there's these 9 levels. And when we get to the top, it's the most condensed. And that's the 18 day by 18 days. So 36 days would be, and where that actually starts into in terms of the 260-day calendar can give reference to because the 260-day calendar is important in terms of it's actually a gestation cycle of time. It's growth from seed to fruit. Yeah. And it's actually 9 months. So we're in our mother's womb in a 260-day period and we give birth. It's just around about that amount of time. And so where the ninth wave oscillates and differentiates its cycles, and where it is on that 260 has a bearing on and an influence on things as well.
Okay, now I'm seeing how this might want to play out. Bearing in mind, today is the 14th day of the 8th wave beginning, a 260-day cycle. 360
days.
360-day cycle from today. So my feeling is our meetings are going to be on the dates of the 9th wave, when a night ends and a day begins. Every 36 days we're going to meet with awareness of what's happening in the 8th wave simultaneously, because we will be able to engage from the 9th wave into the 8th wave on actions that we're taking.
Yeah. So the overall bearing on things from the 8th wave can be understood, yet the overriding force is the 9th wave that transcends everything. Yet the 8th and all the levels below are all relevant because we're living in the physical dimension. So the 9th, these 9 levels of creation have created us to live in this physical dimension. So it's all relevant. But the most important thing, and not to complicate it, is the 360, 260, and the 9th wave and how all that works. But the rest will all just come in as you go.
Yeah. So 9th wave is 18 days. 18 days are a full 36-day cycle. That's 9th wave. 8th wave is the 360-day cycles.
No, it's 720. So it's 360, 360.
360, 360, 360. Okay.
The way it can be looked at is the sun rises in the east at the beginning of the day, like today, and then in 180 days' time, it will be at the south, and then another 180 days' time, it will be in the west. Time it will be at the trough of the valley in the north, where the sun rests. It's midnight, and then it will go up again 180 days later and be back to the east. And this is what the 9th wave also does. So the 9th wave also does that. In actual fact, we're going into the west direction now. So we're going into the 137th night in the valley. So we 9 days time we get to the north, and then next 9 days we get back to the east, and that's when a new peak and valley starts in 18 days time. A new peak and valley starts of 18 and 18, which equals 36. So in 18 days time is the beginning of a new 9th wave 36-day cycle.
Okay, so we will either begin, I think we're going to begin then in one cycle of 18 and 3 cycles of 18. So probably begin in 54 days from now at the end of September-ish. Yeah.
Okay. Well, a little bit longer than that. More like in October. By the 15th of October, I think is the beginning of a new,
I'll have to check that date with you. That's interesting too, because that's when we'll also be just come out of an eclipse sandwich. And there's also, I'm sensing we're about to go through a big tsunami wave of awakening through the eclipse, through the equinox passage in September equinox. There's a massive sort of undertow many are feeling right now. Not quite sure how it's going to manifest on physical reality, but through September equinox, we've got a big wave of awakening of consciousness. Then we've got another eclipse sandwich from September through to the beginning of October. So it feels like we might actually open the source portal on the next cycle after that in mid-October. Yeah.
Yes. So I will just tell you something, if I may. Have you got the link to the 9th wave? And you can see the 18 days up and 18 days down. It's a calculator. Have you seen that?
Is that on your recent newsletter?
Yeah, it is there. Yeah, it's called the Ninth Wave calendar or calculator. But anyhow, on there, if you type in the date, like just argument's sake, type in. I'll send it to you as well now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just hold on. What's good? Okay. I'll send it to your Zoom chat thing.
Okay.
And you type in the date there. I'll tell you now before you type it in. I'll tell you what date to type.
Okay, we're going to open it up now.
So
and
if you look, if you type in, you see there that the 21st of August, 2024, it's the 137th night, the first day of the 137th night, and then in brackets got 19 of 36. Have you seen that yet?
Hey, we've got it here. I've got it on shared screen. So give me your instructions now. And
I'll tell you now.
Right now we've got today's date in there, but if you tell me what date, I will pop it in.
Okay, put in 14th of October.
Okay.
So that's
look
the
at that.
beginning of
There's
the
our
first
day.
Yeah, the first day of the 139th night. You see, it's 1 of 36.
Yep.
So that's the peak, new peak. So we'll be coming out of the valley and into a peak there, and that will be 9, 9, 9, and 9, or 18 and 18.
Absolutely perfect. So that will be our start day for Source Portal, 14 October 2024.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that, Sean.
Okay. Pleasure.
Is there anything else? Anything else where you might be able to suggest to optimize our gatherings that will meet every 36 days on the 9th wave of the Mayan calendar?
Well, I think one of the things is to reflect the journey, to reflect where you've been before this lifetime. You know, like you may have had little visions or dreams, or for me, it's about the indigenous. So we've come from nature. We were indigenous. We are still indigenous inherently, but yet Western civilization has taken us away from nature and our indigenous roots. That's why I work with the Bushmen, and you've met the Bushmen here, and you work with many indigenous people. You know the power of the indigenous teachings, and really that's where this information comes from, the Mayan calendar. So the indigenous teachings are what are waking us up. So the beginning is actually, everything has come full circle. The beginning is starting again. This is really where we are. So that's, I think it's important for me anyhow, if I were to leave with that sort of consciousness to people, I would say that's important.
Yeah, every morning in my morning prayer and practice, there is an honoring to the Red Road Paths, the Indigenous wisdom keepers, the green men and women who have honored our connectivity and reciprocity with nature, that we are here to remember now, because it is through that we reconnect to ourselves, each other, and our planet. And with that reconnection, it changes the way we relate within and without. And that is the frequency of the heart, of love, and the unified field of which we may live our new earth frequency now. We may live our new earth now, when we are able to stabilize in that, not just as a concept, but through our embodiment in the way we walk in the world. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you, everybody who's joining us for this recording.
Yes, thanks. And thanks.
And thank you to you and the Kalahari San who have held the codes of creation prior to manifestation.
Yes,
And
absolutely. They've done the dance, the ceremonies, the songs of time. And this, in my view, if you look at it almost like a little bit from a scientific perspective, that is what they trusted themselves to do. But in doing so, they were aligning to the evolution of consciousness. They were actually holding the light of humanity so that we could be here.
Yes, wonderful, actually. And after this, please stay on, because when I push pause on this recording, I'd also like to have a conversation with you of a sacred journey in South Africa I'm being guided to facilitate through June solstice next year, and how we can weave in a meeting with the Kamani San on that journey and with you. So thank you, Sean, from Cape Town, South Africa. Thank you for all who are joining us, and we look forward to meeting you in the Source Portal on the 14th of October, 2 days before my next birthday. Wow, that would be fantastic celebration. Much love from Mama Bali, everyone. See you all soon.